So The Rock comes out. He says he wants the world title. Austin comes out and arguably an even bigger pop than The Rock. It's like, wow, there's someone even more over than The Rock, and he wants the title. Then Vince McMahon comes out and says, oh, we know what you guys want. Well, what does Triple H want? And he calls out Triple H, and very interesting to watch Triple H in this moment. He's right. He's almost like he doesn't have the confidence of what he would have in a few years as the game. He's still finding himself as his character, and also clearly a notch under The Rock and Austin in terms of overness and just placement on the card in fans' eyes, I would say.
Well, that's fine. That's like being a notch under Babe Ruth and Willie Mays. Still can be a Hall of Famer.
But still, the crowd loves to hate him, and McMahon reveals that it's going to be a triple threat, and the crowd loves this partially because of how much Triple H hates it.
Right. And also, let me just interject here for a second, because we'll talk about this. That's why it was so smart, I think, to have Triple H the champion. And Triple H, he did I think he's underrated a bit for the service he did to these guys. Because what was happening is you had forever, babyface heel. The Rock and Austin are arguably, they're tweeners. They're baby faces who act like heels in a way. So this is kind of interesting. Like, well, how are you going to have what kind of mechanisms will a heel have against these guys? So you had to have someone like Triple H who was like, it was kind of perfect where, you start to have so much charisma, going at each other. You needed him to be like, he should be like a little flat and like, maybe a little whinier. You know what I mean? There was kind of thought to that about how he was. And when you say like he's a little lower, like that kind of worked. It was good. And he kind of knew like, well, his time will come around. He'll push his own buttons to be a bigger individual later. But, there was not, I think it would have been a mistake to come out and like, I'm going to out charisma these guys. It worked, if that made sense.
And also he couldn't. There's no way. There's no way he could have. And I think why it works is if Austin or Rock were champion and the other was gunning for them, that means some of the crowd would be booing either Austin or Rock. But here they're cheering both of them because they want to see either one of them kick Triple H's ass.
Absolutely, yeah.
It keeps them strong as well. Not to have, they don't need the title right now. They're so over. Like what does it matter?
It's funny.
The title is getting Triple H over in a way.
Yeah. And then you want those guys on a trajectory always like that, and that's a classic wrestling thing. Like the person chasing is better, like, oh God, that, if only we would have gotten a Raw deal, they could get the title. And I love this kind of like triple threat. They weren't so common back then, and I think they kind of got exhausted. And it was funny when we did the Reddit Ask Me Anything. A lot of people I find too, like, oh, why is it always these triple threats and this and that? And I'm like, but you have to remember at the time that was pretty fresh. Like, what? All three? That's interesting. And even I remember like, how are they going to work that match? That'll be fun. You know what I mean? Because you didn't see a lot of that. Then
definitely not in WWF.
Yeah.
This was definitely the first they started doing it, and it was interesting. They called it a triple threat, not like a three-way dance, which other companies would call it.
And also not in a big main event too. There's always all kinds of skagagery with all kinds of stuff, but in a big main event, like I found that interesting. I found that a good call.